Ryan had just finished microwaving his dinner when he heard the sound. It was faint at first, like someone testing a door handle. He looked up from his plate of leftover pasta, confused. He lived alone in a small apartment on the third floor of an old building downtown. The kind of place where everyone minded their own business and kept to themselves. The door opened slowly. Ryan's heart jumped. He wasn't expecting anyone. He didn't even remember the last time someone had visited his apartment. For a second, he thought about grabbing something to defend himself, but then he saw her face. It was the woman from apartment 3C. He'd seen her in the hallway maybe a dozen times over the past 6 months. They'd exchanged the usual neighbor greetings. Nothing more than a quick smile or a good morning when they passed each other by the mailboxes. He didn't even know her name. But now she was standing in his doorway, and something was clearly wrong. Her eyes were swollen and red. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she was wearing an oversized sweater that looked like it had seen better days. She stood there for a moment, frozen, like she was surprised at her own actions. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know this is crazy. I couldn't be alone tonight." Ryan stood there holding his fork, completely caught off guard. His mind raced through 100 different responses, but none of them seemed right. He could see she'd been crying. Her hands were shaking slightly as she gripped the door frame. "It's okay," he heard himself say, though he wasn't sure if it was okay at all. "Come in, sit down." She stepped inside hesitantly, like she might change her mind at any second. Ryan quickly moved some papers off his couch and gestured for her to sit. She did, pulling her knees up to her chest and wrapping her arms around them. It was the posture of someone trying to make themselves as small as possible. "I saw your light on," she explained, staring at the floor. Everyone else's apartment was dark. "I've been sitting in mine for hours, just staring at the walls, and I couldn't take it anymore. I know we don't really know each other. This is completely inappropriate. I should go." She started to stand up, but Ryan held up his hand. "No, please. It's fine. Really, you look like you could use some tea or something." He wasn't good at this kind of thing. Emotions, feelings, dealing with crying people. He'd spent the last 2 years basically avoiding all of that. But something about the way she looked so lost made him want to help. Even if he had no idea what he was doing, he went to the kitchen and put the kettle on. His hands moved on autopilot while his mind tried to catch up with what was happening. The stranger was sitting in his living room, clearly going through something terrible. And he was making tea like this was a normal Tuesday evening. "I'm Bella, by the way," she called out from the couch. "I know we've never actually introduced ourselves properly." "I'm in 3C, Ryan," he replied, grabbing two mugs from the cabinet. "3B, obviously." He heard her let out a small laugh, though it sounded more sad than amused. When the tea was ready, he brought both mugs over and sat down in the chair across from her. The silence felt heavy, like it was pressing down on both of them. Bella wrapped her hands around the mug, letting the warmth seep into her fingers. "Today's the anniversary," she said quietly. 1 year since my brother died. Car accident. Some guy ran a red light going 50 in a 30 zone. My brother was just driving home from his shift at the restaurant where he worked. Ryan felt his chest tighten. He knew that pain. Maybe not the exact same situation, but he knew what it felt like to lose someone suddenly. To have the world keep spinning when yours had just stopped. "I'm sorry," he said, and meant it. The words felt inadequate, but what else was there to say? "Everyone keeps telling me it gets easier," Bella continued, her voice cracking slightly. "That time heals all wounds. That I need to move on. But today felt just as hard as it did 365 days ago. Maybe harder, because now I'm supposed to be okay. I'm supposed to have processed it and found peace or whatever." She wiped at her eyes with the sleeve of her sweater. "My family's back in Oregon. I moved here 6 months ago because I needed a fresh start. Needed to get away from all the places that reminded me of him. But tonight, being alone in this city where I barely know anyone, it just hit me all at once. The loneliness, the grief, everything." Ryan took a sip of his tea, trying to find the right words. He wasn't a therapist. He wasn't even particularly good at talking about feelings, but he understood what she meant about certain days hitting harder than others. "I lost my dad 2 years ago," he finally said. "Heart attack, completely unexpected. One day he was fine, complaining about his back pain and planning a fishing trip. The next day he was gone." Bella looked up at him, really looked at him, and something passed between them. A recognition, an understanding that didn't need many words. "Does it get easier?" she asked. Ryan thought about it. "It gets different. Some days I barely think about it. Other days something small will remind me of him, like a song on the radio or the smell of coffee. And it's like it just happened yesterday. I don't think the pain goes away. You just learn to carry it better." They sat in silence for a while, not the uncomfortable kind that demands to be filled with empty chatter, the kind where two people are just being present with each other, sharing space and breath and the weight of their losses. Ryan noticed she'd stopped crying. Her shoulders had relaxed slightly, and she was actually drinking the tea instead of just holding it. He realized that maybe she didn't need him to say anything profound or offer solutions. Maybe she just needed to not be alone, to sit in a room with another human being who understood that grief doesn't follow a schedule, or care about what anyone thinks you should be feeling. "Thank you for not turning me away," Bella said after a long while. "When I walked up to your door, I almost didn't knock. Actually, I didn't knock. I just opened it, which is insane. You could have called the police." Ryan smiled slightly. "I probably should have been more alarmed. But you looked like you needed help. Not like you were here to rob me of my incredible collection of video game controllers and instant noodles." That got a real laugh out of her, small but genuine. "Quite a treasure trove you've got here." "I'm a man of simple tastes," Ryan replied. The tension in the room had shifted. It was still there, the heavy presence of grief and loss, but it felt more manageable somehow, like it had been acknowledged and given space to exist without consuming everything. Bella set down her mug and looked around his apartment. It was small and simple, decorated in the way that single guys in their late 20s tend to decorate, which is to say barely decorated at all. A couch, a TV, some books stacked haphazardly on a shelf. A couple of plants that were somehow still alive despite his best efforts to forget about them. "This is going to sound strange," she said, "but your apartment feels peaceful. Mine feels empty. There's a difference." Ryan had never thought about it that way, but he understood what she meant. His place wasn't much, but it was his. A space he built for himself after everything fell apart. A quiet refuge from the world. Ryan made another pot of tea. The first cups had gone cold while they sat in comfortable silence. Bella had relaxed into the couch now, no longer curled up like she was trying to disappear. She watched him move around the small kitchen, and when he came back with fresh mugs, she gave him a tired but grateful smile. "Tell me about him," Ryan said, settling back into his chair. "Your brother, if you want to. I mean." Bella's eyes brightened slightly, even though they were still sad. "His name was Tommy. He was 23, 3 years younger than me. Everyone always said we looked exactly alike, except he had this crazy curly hair that he could never tame. He used to joke that his hair had its own personality." She laughed softly at the memory. "He was studying to be a teacher. Elementary school kids. He had this gift with children, you know? They just loved him. He'd do these funny voices and make up stories on the spot. Last summer, he worked at a summer camp, and the kids made him this ridiculous crown out of paper plates and called him King Tommy. He wore it the entire last day." Ryan found himself smiling. "He sounds like he was a good person. The best," Bella said, her voice catching. "He was the kind of person who would stop to help a stranger change a flat tire in the rain, who would spend his last $20 buying groceries for the elderly woman who lived next door, who remembered everyone's birthday and always knew exactly what to say when you were having a bad day." She paused, staring into her tea. "We talked every Sunday. No matter what, it was our thing. Even when I was swamped with work or he had exams, we'd make time for our Sunday call. We'd talk about everything and nothing. He'd tell me about his classes, about this girl he liked but was too nervous to ask out, about his dreams of having his own classroom someday. The last time we talked, she continued, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. He was excited because he'd finally asked that girl out and she'd said yes. They were going to get coffee that week. He was so nervous he made me help him plan what he was going to wear. Can you imagine? A grown man worried about what shirt to wear to a coffee date? Ryan could hear the pain in her voice, but also the love. The way grief and joy could exist in the same memory. What about your dad? Bella asked, looking up at him. What was he like? Ryan hadn't talked about his father in months. His mom would try to bring him up sometimes, but Ryan always changed the subject. It hurt too much. But sitting here with Bella, someone who understood that specific kind of pain, it felt different. Safer somehow. Dad was a mechanic, Ryan started, in his own shop for 30 years. His hands were always stained with grease, no matter how hard he scrubbed them. He used to joke that he was part human, part motor oil. Bella smiled at that. He taught me everything about cars. Every weekend when I was a kid, I'd go to the shop with him. I'd hand him tools, and he'd explain what he was doing. By the time I was 16, I could change an engine blind. Not that I use that skill much now in my IT job, but still. Ryan felt his throat tighten, but pushed through. He wasn't great with words. Never said I love you much, but he showed it in other ways. He'd leave notes in my lunch when I was in school. Just stupid stuff like don't forget to check your oil or remember, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. His way of saying he was thinking about me. That's beautiful, Bella said softly. The day he died, I was supposed to visit him. We made plans to watch the game together. But I canceled because I had a work deadline. I told him we'd do it next week. Ryan's voice cracked. There was no next week. He had the heart attack that night, alone in his living room. Mom found him the next morning. Bella reached across the space between them and touched his hand briefly. Just a moment of connection, of shared understanding. I spent months thinking about that, Ryan admitted. If I'd just gone over like I promised. If I'd been there, maybe I could have called an ambulance faster. Maybe things would have been different. You can't think like that, Bella said gently. I did the same thing. I replay that day in my mind constantly. Tommy called me that morning, but I was in a meeting. I texted him I'd call back later. I never got the chance. The accident happened that afternoon. They sat with that for a moment, both carrying the weight of their last missed chances. People don't understand, Bella said eventually. They think grief has stages, like it's something you can complete and move on from. But it's not like that. Some days I'm angry. Angry at the driver who ran that light. Angry at the universe for being so unfair. Angry at Tommy for leaving me. She wiped her eyes again. Then I feel guilty for being angry at him, because it wasn't his fault. And then I'm sad. And then I'm numb. And then something will make me laugh. And I'll feel guilty for laughing because how can I laugh when he's gone? Ryan nodded. He knew exactly what she meant. After Dad died, I went back to work after a week. Everyone kept asking if I was okay, if I needed more time. But what was I supposed to do? Sit at home and stare at the walls. So I pretended everything was fine. I showed up, did my job, went through all the motions. But you weren't fine, Bella said. It wasn't a question. Not even close. I was running on empty for months. Just going through the routine because that's what you're supposed to do. People expect you to grieve for a little while, then get back to normal. But there is no normal anymore. Everything's different. Bella pulled her knees up again, resting her chin on them. That's exactly why I moved here. Everyone back home kept expecting me to be the old me, the person I was before Tommy died. But that person doesn't exist anymore. I needed to go somewhere where people didn't have expectations, where I could figure out who I am now. Has it helped? Ryan asked. I don't know yet. Some days yes, some days no. Today definitely felt like a no. She looked around his apartment again. But right now, sitting here, talking to someone who actually gets it, this helps more than 6 months of well-meaning friends telling me to stay positive. Ever did. Ryan felt something shift inside him. He'd spent 2 years avoiding this exact kind of conversation, avoiding his feelings, avoiding talking about his dad, avoiding connection with people because it felt easier than being vulnerable. But talking with Bella didn't feel hard. It felt necessary, like something he'd been needing without realizing it. You know what the worst part is? Bella said. People forget, not right away, but eventually, life moves on for everyone else. They stop asking how you're doing. They expect you to be over it, but you're still living with this hole in your life every single day. Yeah, Ryan agreed. And then you feel alone in your grief, which somehow makes it worse. Exactly. Bella sat up straighter. It's like you said earlier, some days you barely think about it, and then boom, something triggers a memory, and you're right back in that moment. And nobody around you understands why you're suddenly sad about a commercial or a song, or the smell of coffee. They talked for another hour, sharing memories and moments of pain and confusion. Bella told him about Tommy's terrible singing voice and how he'd still belt out songs in the car. Anyway, the following Tuesday evening, Ryan heard a knock on his door, a proper knock this time. He opened it to find Bella standing there with a paper bag that smelled amazing. "I hope you like Thai food," she said, holding up the bag. "I got extra spring rolls." Ryan grinned from downstairs with the really good peanut sauce. "Is there any other kind?" They ate on his couch, watching an old detective movie neither of them had seen before. Bella kept guessing the plot twist wrong, and Ryan teased her about it. It felt easy, comfortable, like they'd been doing this for years instead of days. "So I did something today," Bella said during a commercial break. "Something I've been thinking about since our talk." "Yeah, what's that?" "I called the community center near my old apartment. Back home, they have an after-school program for kids, and I asked if they needed volunteers." She picked at her spring roll. Tommy always wanted to work with kids. He never got the chance. "But maybe I can do something in his memory, teach an art class, or help with homework or something." Ryan felt pride swell in his chest. "Bella, that's incredible. When do you start?" "I don't yet. They're going to call me back." But just making the call felt good. Like I was doing something instead of just surviving. "You know, I do know." Ryan set down his food. "Actually, I did something too. I called my mom. We're having dinner this weekend. First time I've initiated that in probably a year." Bella's face broke into a huge smile. "Ryan, that's huge." She sounded so happy I almost felt bad about how long I've been avoiding her. She kept asking if everything was okay, like she couldn't believe I was actually reaching out. "How do you feel about it?" Ryan thought about it. "Nervous, but good nervous. She's been trying so hard to connect with me since Dad died, and I kept pushing her away because talking to her meant talking about him. But maybe that's what we both need." Over the next few weeks, Tuesday dinners became their thing. Sometimes Bella would bring food. Sometimes Ryan would attempt to cook something. His attempts were hit or miss, mostly miss, but Bella appreciated the effort. They watch movies, talk about their days, share stories about their lives before loss had reshaped everything. Bella started volunteering at a youth center in the city, teaching painting to teenagers on Saturday mornings. She came back energized. Every week, telling Ryan about the kids and their artwork and their wild teenage drama. One boy reminded her so much of Tommy that it hurt, but in a good way, a way that kept her brother's memory alive. Ryan started visiting his mom every other weekend. The first visit was awkward, filled with long silences and careful conversations around the elephant in the room. But by the third visit, they were able to talk about his dad, really talk, share memories, and cry and laugh together. His mom pulled out old photo albums, and they spent hours looking through pictures. "Remembering, you look happier," Bella observed one Tuesday in late autumn. They were attempting to make homemade pizza, though the dough looked more like a science experiment gone wrong. "I feel happier," Ryan admitted. "Trying to salvage the dough. Not all the time. Still have bad days, but more good days than I've had in a long time." "Same here. I actually went on a date last week." Ryan looked up, surprised. "Really? How'd it go?" Bella made a face. "Terrible. He talked about himself for 2 hours straight. But the fact that I even went, that I put myself out there, felt like progress. That's what matters." Ryan finally gave up on the dough and reached for the phone. "Want to just order pizza?" "Absolutely." While they waited for delivery, Bella pulled out her phone. Want to see what the kids painted this week? This 13-year-old girl did this incredible sunset piece. She's never painted before, but she has such natural talent. Ryan looked through the photos, impressed by the artwork. You're really good at this, teaching them. It doesn't feel like teaching. It feels like giving them a space to express themselves. Some of these kids have tough home lives. Art becomes this outlet for everything they're feeling but don't know how to say. Kind of like how talking to you became an outlet for me, Ryan said. Bella looked up at him. For me too. I don't think you realize how much that night changed things. For me, I was in such a dark place. If your light hadn't been on, if you hadn't let me in, if you hadn't just sat with me without judgment, I don't know where I'd be right now. You would have been okay. You're stronger than you think, maybe. But I'm glad I didn't have to find out. The pizza arrived, and they settled in to watch another movie halfway through. Ryan's phone buzzed. His mom, sending him a photo of a fish his dad had caught years ago. The text said she'd been organizing the garage and found old fishing photos. Instead of the usual pang of pain, Ryan felt himself smile. He showed Bella the picture. That's Dad. He was so proud of that fish he made everyone at the marina take a photo with it. He looks happy. Bella said softly, That was a good day. Ryan saved the photo to his favorites. You know what I realized? I've been so focused on the last day, on missing that visit, that I forgot about all the good days. All the times we did spend together. It's easy to get stuck there, and the regret. Bella understood. She told him about her own regrets, the calls she didn't return, the visits she postponed. But that's not fair to his memory. Dad wouldn't want me beating myself up forever. He'd want me to remember the fishing trips and the terrible jokes and the way he'd sing off-key in the garage. Tommy would want the same for me, Bella said. He'd probably make fun of me for moping around. He'd tell me to get out there and live enough for both of us. They sat with that truth for a moment. The movie played in the background, but neither was really watching anymore. Can I tell you something? Ryan said. That night you walked in here, I was in a bad place too. Different from yours, but bad. I've been going through the motions for so long that I've forgotten what it felt like to actually connect with someone. You reminded me. We helped each other, Bella said simply. Yeah, we did. Ryan picked up the guitar he'd left by the couch. He'd been practicing a little bit each day. Just a few minutes here and there. His fingers still hurt, but not as much. Want to hear the world's most mediocre version of a song? Bella laughed, always. He played through the 4 chords he'd finally mastered, singing along badly. Bella joined in, equally off-key. They sounded terrible together, but neither cared. When Ryan hit a wrong note and had to start over, they both dissolved into laughter. We're so bad at this, Bella said, wiping tears from her eyes. The worst, Ryan agreed. Want to try again, obviously. As midnight approached, the conversation began to shift. The heavy weight of grief was still there, but it felt lighter somehow, like acknowledging it out loud had made it easier to carry. Bella had stopped crying completely now, and there was even a hint of color back in her cheeks. Can I ask you something? Bella said, tilting her head slightly. What do you do when you're having a really bad day? Like today, for me. What helps? Ryan thought about it. Honestly, I usually just try to power through. Make myself busy, clean the apartment, go for a walk, anything to keep my mind occupied. It doesn't always work, but it's better than sitting still with my thoughts. That's what I tried to do today, Bella said. I cleaned my entire apartment, twice, reorganized my closet, did all my laundry, but when the sun went down and there was nothing left to clean, the silence just became too loud. I get that. The evenings are the hardest for me too. Ryan glanced at his bookshelf. Sometimes I watch old movies. The kind my dad and I used to watch together. Detective films, mostly. Film noir stuff from the 40s and 50s. Bella's eyes lit up. Wait, really? I love those old detective movies. The ones with all the dramatic shadows and the tough-talking private eyes. You're kidding. Ryan said, genuinely surprised. Nobody our age watches those anymore. Everyone thinks I'm weird when I mention them. Are you serious? Those movies are incredible. Bella shifted on the couch, suddenly more animated. The Maltese Falcon, The Big Sleep, Double Indemnity. The dialogue is so sharp and clever. Nothing like movies today. Ryan couldn't help but grin. Okay, now I'm convinced you're making this up just to be nice. I'm not. I swear. Bella laughed. My grandpa got me into them when I was a teenager. He had this huge collection on DVD. We'd watch them together every time I visited. He paused them to explain all the historical context and point out the camera techniques. That's exactly how I got into them, Ryan said. My dad had this thing about classic cinema. He said modern movies had forgotten how to build atmosphere. He'd make me watch them and quiz me on the plot twists. They spent the next 20 minutes discussing their favorite films, debating which detective was the most clever, which femme fatale was the most dangerous. It was surreal, Ryan thought. How they'd gone from strangers to sharing their deepest grief to now laughing about old movies. But somehow it all felt natural. What else are you into? Bella asked. Besides old movies and apparently letting random neighbors crash your evening, Ryan chuckled. Well, I tried to learn guitar once. Bought a decent acoustic, watched about 1 million YouTube tutorials, practiced for maybe 3 weeks, then gave up when my fingers hurt too much. Bella's mouth dropped open. No way, I did the exact same thing. I got a guitar for my birthday 2 years ago, convinced I was going to become this amazing musician. Learned exactly for chords before I realized I have zero musical talent. For chords? Look at you, overachiever. I barely made it through 3. Ryan shook his head. The guitar's still in my closet, collecting dust. I keep telling myself I'll pick it back up someday. Mine too. It's like this silent reminder of my failure every time I open the closet door. Bella was smiling now, a real smile that reached her eyes. What else? Any other abandoned hobbies I should know about? Let's see. I tried running for a while. Got about 2 weeks into a couch to 5K program before my knees reminded me I'm not 20 anymore. Tried cooking fancy meals, but I nearly burned down my kitchen making what was supposed to be a simple risotto. Oh, and I bought a sourdough starter during the pandemic like everyone else. Let me guess. Bella said, laughing. It died within a month? 2 weeks. I forgot to feed it. Felt like I'd committed some kind of crime against bread. Bella was laughing harder now. The kind of genuine laughter that comes after crying for too long. Okay, I can top that. I tried to start a plant Instagram account. Was going to document my journey becoming a plant mom. Every single plant died. Every single one. Even the cactus. How do you kill a cactus? Ryan asked, genuinely curious. Overwatering, apparently. Who knew? I was trying too hard to keep it alive and ended up drowning it. She shook her head. My followers, all 12 of them, watched my plants die in real time. It was like a botanical horror show. Ryan was laughing too now. That might be the saddest thing I've heard all night, and we've been talking about dead relatives. Bella snorted, which made them both laugh harder. It felt good. Really good. Like releasing pressure that had been building for too long. When the laughter subsided, Bella looked at Ryan with something like wonder. I can't believe I'm laughing right now. This morning I didn't think I'd make it through the day. I definitely didn't think I'd be sitting in my neighbor's apartment laughing about dead plants. And failed guitar lessons? Life's weird like that, Ryan said. The worst days can surprise you. Thank you, Bella said seriously. Really? Thank you for not thinking I was crazy when I walked in here. For listening. For sharing your own story. For making me laugh when I thought that was impossible today. Ryan felt a warmth in his chest that he hadn't felt in a long time. You don't have to thank me. Honestly, I think I needed this too. I've been kind of isolated since Dad died. Kept people at arm's length. This is the most I've talked about him in 2 years. Sometimes it's easier to open up to someone who understands, Bella said. Someone who doesn't try to fix you or give you advice. Just someone who sits with you in the mess. They discovered more common ground as the night went on. Both ordered from the same Thai restaurant downstairs, always getting pad Thai with extra peanuts. Both had tried and failed to understand cryptocurrency. Both stayed up till late scrolling through their phones and then regretted it the next morning. Both preferred tea over coffee, which Ryan pointed out was practically unheard of for their generation. I feel like I've known you for years instead of ours, Bella said, checking her phone and realizing it was almost 1 in the morning. Oh no, I've been here for like 4 hours. I'm so sorry. You probably have work tomorrow. I do. But it's fine. Really, Ryan meant it. He couldn't remember the last time he'd stayed up talking to someone like this. Besides, I usually stay up until 2 anyway, watching videos I'll never remember. Bella stood up slowly, stretching. I should probably go. Let you get some sleep. She looked uncertain again, like the weight of the evening was settling back on her shoulders. Hey, Ryan said, standing up too. My door's open. I mean that. If you're having a bad day, or you just want to watch a terrible old detective movie, or whatever, you don't have to face things alone. Bella's eyes got watery again, but she was smiling. That means more than you know. Same goes for you. 3C is right there if you need anything. She walked to the door, then turned back. You know what's funny? I've lived here 6 months and barely knew anyone in the building. Kept to myself, went to work, came home. I told myself I was fine being alone, that I didn't need people. But I was just scared. Scared of letting anyone in. Scared of being vulnerable again. And now? Ryan asked. Now I'm glad I was scared enough tonight to do something crazy like walk into a stranger's apartment. She smiled. Good night, Ryan, and thank you for everything. Good night, Bella. After she left, Ryan stood in his quiet apartment. It felt different somehow, less empty. He looked at his phone and saw a message from his mom he'd been ignoring for 3 days. He typed out a response, telling her he'd come visit this weekend. Then he looked at the guitar case in his closet and pulled it out, setting it by the couch. Maybe some things were worth trying again.